And so Jesus is the king of the kingdom. And ultimately, he's getting his rules and his reign from God. And so it's ultimately God's rule and reign over us. So I got two takeaways for you. The first takeaway is this. Since we are currently under God's rule and reign and we are in God's kingdom, we should be excited about it. It should be something that we should be excited about. We see years, hundreds and hundreds of years of people like waiting and longing for the kingdom of God to get here, and it finally comes in the person of Jesus. That should be something that should excite us. I have this friend, okay? And when he was a kid, he got this little Power Ranger toy. It was like a morphing Power Ranger watch that you put around. I don't know if you guys ever watched Power Rangers, but they'd be like, "My Power Rangers Mighty Morph," and then they would morph into their suit or whatever. Well, he got this when he was like 6 or whatever. And his mom gave it to him, and he put it on. He's like, "Power Rangers morph." His mom was like, "Oh my gosh, you just morphed into an actual Power Ranger. You actually have the suit on now." And he was so excited. He was running around the house just doing that all day. "Power Rangers morph." And he thought that the green suit, he was morphing into the green suit. Well, it's something that excited him. Towards the end of the day, his I think it was his uncle, seen him, and he was like, "Power Rangers morph." And he does it, and his uncle's like, "Hey, you're not really morphing." Because his uncle was getting annoyed at him for running around the house doing that all day. He says, "You're not really morphing. Go and look in the mirror." So my friend goes and he stands in front of the mirror. He's like, "Power Rangers morph." And he looks, he's not actually morphing into a Power Ranger. So he takes it off his wrist and he throws it and he breaks it. And I'm sure his mom was frustrated about that. At the beginning of the day, he was so excited, but by the end of the day, he lost his excitement. I feel that's what a lot of people do when it comes to Jesus and the kingdom of God. They meet Jesus and they're so excited and they're like, "Man, this is awesome, this is amazing." But at some point they lose that excitement and they start seeking other things besides the kingdom of God. What you need to understand is this is a promise that God had been building for thousands or hundreds and hundreds of years, a couple thousand years, that I would rule and reign over my people. And he has done that now in Jesus. He is ruling and reigning over his people through his son, Jesus Christ. And that should be something that should excite us. I heard a pastor say this the other day. And I tell you that because I don't feel like I've lived enough life to really understand this at this point. I mean, to come up with it myself, I understand it. But what he said is that the line is always moving, okay? And he says this, it's like when you're 15, you're really, really excited to get your license, right? And you're like, if I just get my license, then I've made it, right? And so you get your license, and then you're like, man, well, if I just get to college, then I make it. And you get to college, and you're like, man, you still don't feel fulfilled. You're like, if I just graduate college, then I've made it. And you do that, and you're like, oh, I don't feel fulfilled. If I just start a family, then I've made it. If I just get this job, then I made it. And the line keeps moving and moving and moving higher and higher. This happened to me when it comes to coaching football. I was like, if I just coach football, man, that would make my life so much greater. I started coaching in Paxton. It's like, well, if I just start coaching in Rantoul, then my life will make it. Most people, it's the exact opposite. If I get out of Rantoul, I made it. But it's where I'm from, so I wanted to coach there so bad. So I was like, if I just coach there, man, then I made it. And I start coaching there. And I was like, well, if I just lead my freshman team to a winning record, I made it. Lead them to 4-2. I made it. And then it's like, well, if our varsity team could just win more than 2 games, then I'll make it. It's like every time I get a goal that's deeper and deeper, and I feel like I'm not fulfilled because I haven't reached that goal yet. And so the line is always moving in your life. You always feel like, I got to do this, I got to get this. If I do this, then I'll be fulfilled. But the kingdom of God says, no. Though it's good to have ambition and you should try to reach your goals. But in the kingdom of God, we have fulfillment in Jesus, right? And we don't have to always keep trying to reach this goal, and reach this goal to be fulfilled. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will come. And so the kingdom of God destroys the lines, right? It says we can be fulfilled in Jesus, and that should excite us. We, as Christians, we are the wealthiest Christians to ever walk the earth. We are the most comfortable Christians in the fact of our lifestyle. And we are, if it's going to be hard for some of you, but we are the least persecuted Christians ever to walk the earth, right? There may be some persecution by people, but we don't fear for our life. And honestly, in America, it may not always be acceptable, but it can always happen. You can always be a Christian and be okay. Yet we are some of the most unfulfilled people to ever walk the earth. And I think it's because we're always trying to move that line, and we got to reach this and reach this and reach this. But Jesus is saying, no, in the kingdom of God, that's where you find your fulfillment. Watch this promise that's been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years and trust in that and live in this kingdom.